Welcome to the Fish North Georgia podcast, where we talk everything fishing here in North Georgia.
Make a cast over that brush pile and bring wolf packs of spotted bass up.
Georgia is blessed with so many of these electric-only lakes.
No, I didn't say that, Danny. Don't be speculating now.
I'm just going to get right into it today. On this podcast, we've got a special guest for you. I don't know if we're going to be able to make it through this podcast without absolutely losing. I don't know about credibility, but or just, I don't even know where we're going to go with this. But my guest today, I'm going to go ahead and introduce him as I think he would like to be introduced, as the Drop Shot Jedi. The Drop Shot Jedi.
Gotcha.
Mr. Jimmy Harmon, so also known as Lanier Jim or LJ.
Yep.
All right, so let's just jump right into it. Tell us how you got the name Drop Shot Jedi. I've already heard it tonight. I want to hear it again.
I was out with the Gone Forum, Cletus, named Clint Bice, on the GON forum. And he and I went out one day and we pulled up on two places. And I said, don't cast yet, now. He did. As soon as he hit the water, he caught a fish. Pulled up on the second place, and I'd snatched a few dropping real quick. And then he pulled up, and I said, now. He made the cast, caught a fish as soon as it hit the water. And he said, man, that's some of that Jedi mind stuff.
Right, absolutely.
And the next thing I know is he said that fairy wand in my hand was like a lightsaber. So that's how it started. That was all Cletus.
Oh, Clint. I'm going to have to be honest with you. We've been sitting here talking for about an hour before we decided to record this. So if we sound like we're in a good mood, we've been doing a lot of laughing. But I've had my mind blown by some of the stuff we've talked about. So I hope you guys get what you're getting ready to hear in the same form that I got. I think you're really going to enjoy this. So currently, it sounds like you run about 3 or 4 different businesses that you got going on. So just tell them a little bit. We'll go into them in detail, but just tell them what you do.
Well, first of all, we have Lanier Baits, which is a online tackle store, custom baits. We sell a lot of the local tackle shops. It's mainly focused on finesse fishing, which is, I call it numbers fishing.
Right.
Then I've got Lanier Jim fishing. Lanier Jim fishing is a combo. It's installation of Hummingbird sonars and sales of Hummingbird sonars. And I don't ever call myself a guide. I call them lessons on Lanier. But I give lessons about 5 days a week.
Right. So you're a part-time guide, you say?
Well, I'm pretty
doing
much
full-time work.
I'm pretty much full-time at it. I'm wide open. I just showed you my calendar the next 11 or 12 days straight.
Right.
And then the other one is my family owns a food service company, Royal Food Savers. Shout out to the family.
And that is the one that has allowed you to pursue your passions.
Yep, that sure is.
Okay.
I've been in food business since I was like 3 years old.
That's pretty.
They do a great job. We do a great job as a company.
So basically, you're a busy man.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and I want to say that I'm gonna throw you a softball question right here. One of the first ones. Do you ever sleep?
Y'all see those late night?
Yeah, I do, and that's what I was gonna say. You'll post on Facebook. You're fishing or guiding that morning. Then you're doing all you can eat tacos up there at the restaurant, on Thursday nights and all that.
Which, by the way, are awesome.
I know I'm gonna go with you.
Y'all need to meet. I'll be up there this Thursday.
I know it.
I'm gonna be killing them.
2 weekends or 2 weeks in a row, you posted pictures of tacos. So, and I think the taco is underrated.
Man, I took Big Earl up there with my wife. We went up there,
right?
And they brought them out. Earl started out with 4 or 5. They brought them out, and these things are the size of footballs.
Is it all you can eat?
Oh yeah, $7.99.
And where's it at?
It's Dawsonville, Hacienda in Dawsonville. And the public shopping center. Trust me, just follow my smell. I'll be there.
But you'll eat tacos, and then you'll turn right around and you'll be posting at 4 a.m. pictures of you putting worms in bags.
That's where y'all get confused.
Well, it doesn't take much.
Well, see, my son, he's also on there.
Okay.
And Corey is actually he's the heart and soul of the business.
Okay.
He's one I've explained earlier. We got it open for, but he stays up all night long packing. I mean, I'll have We had 30,000 plus worms, 35,000 worms come in. He's the one that's up all night taking them out of the, because we don't pour them anymore. We poured them for a while, but then it just got to where we couldn't do it.
Right.
And he's taking them out of boxes, lining them up so they don't get all crooked, and bent out of shape and all, and packing.
So you're fishing, eating tacos, and he's back home doing the work.
That's what I'm talking about.
That sounds about right.
But he all night long, he'll pack them up, and then I'll come in there in the mornings, and there'll be, 2 to 10 orders or 3 huge orders going to tackle stores or something, all done, all labeled, packed, and then he sleeps during the day and comes up and packs all night. So everybody starts packing. It's kind of funny because he put up a post the other day, and 6 months ago he did the same thing, or several months ago. He talked about, here we are, we got a whole new line in, I'll be packing all night long. I need some Chex Mix or pistachios.
Right.
And the other day he was doing it again, and still no Chex Mix and pistachios.
Get the man some Chex Mix and some pistachios.
I started laughing. I said, dude, you need to GoFundMe a GoFundMe Chex Mix page.
Well, let's see if we can make that happen. We'll maybe at the end you can give us the address. We'll send him some of that stuff.
But that's what he's the one posting it that night.
Okay, so it's not you. So it's
no,
all a mirage. It's
man,
him.
I've had some other people ask me the same question. Said, "Do you ever sleep?"
Well, I mean, I'm wondering.
I just looked at him and said, "No, I'm on meth."
That sounds. Oh, this is going to be a long podcast. I can tell right here.
I said, no. But that's what it is. Everybody thinks it's me. You just have to look on the fine print. It says James Harmon or Corey Harmon.
Or Corey. Okay, well, I don't get to the fine print very often. I see that. I'm just like, man, he was just eating tacos, about 3 hours ago, and now he's working. Because after I eat as many tacos as I can, I'm going home going to sleep.
I can't believe you just said that knowing I hadn't had dinner.
Well, listen.
You're killing me.
I know. Well,
you brought me out here in the sticks.
In the sticks, that's right. Well, we'll make it up to you. How about that?
With tacos?
Tacos.
Okay.
With tacos. All right, so let's go back to the start. Kind of the start. You're known for your drop shotting.
Yep.
And so kind of tell us back in the day, and I will say this, on all our guests, I tell them to give me a little bit of a bio. And you gave me a hell of a bio here. You pretty much covered it all. We're going to go back to early 80s or late 80s, early 90s. You talk about a trip to Lake Orville. Mm-hmm. Kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Well, being in the food business, produce business, Kiwi, Orville, California is a huge kiwi area. And we went out there anyway and went to Lake Orville, and we were fishing, and we were doodling, which was a Don Iovino. I can't pronounce his last name exactly. But that was something big back then. It was a little glass bead with a 3/16 ounce weight and a little 4-inch 1/0 hook. And you just casted it up and doodled it. As a matter of fact, Doug Youngblood won 2 big tournaments on, I think it was Martin and Lanier back in his bass fishing days instead of striper fishing. Doodling, docks.
Now show me doodling again. I want to make sure we got that on camera. Doodling, okay.
But he, and then they had, the guy handed us something, and he called it downshotting. And it was really just a little stronger crappie hook, like I told you about those gold Aberdeen hooks, except this was bronze. Had a little extra tag on the back of it. He tied a little overhand knot at the bottom, and he had 2 or 3 split shots on it. Put a little 4-inch worm on it, just ran it up on it, and told us to cast it out on the walls. This was like a canyon lake. It was actually had some real steep walls. Cast it out and just barely move it. We'd cast it out, barely move it. By the time we moved it an inch or two the third time, and it started sliding down, boom, there'd be a fish on.
And that is downshotting and doodling.
Back then, downshotting and doodling.
Downshotting and doodling.
Doodling.
And I also noticed you said on a bait caster.
Well, doodling was on back in those days. You remember they had the 5,500 Cs and all? Mm-hmm. Well, they had 2,500 Cs. This was the 2,500 C looked like the 5,500 C, but it was a little Abu Garcia reel. As a matter of fact,
almost kind of like what the crappy reels are kind of like today.
Kind of, except these were made from some good high quality stuff,
right?
With like 6-pound line, and you could throw that little thing.
Really? Do they still make them like that?
I don't know if they make a reel like that or not anymore. I know Don Iovino, if you look on his website, he's looking for used. He looks for every 2,500 C.
So he's trying to get them all back.
I think he's trying to. I think he is. Those things would have bombed back in the day.
I've never seen one.
Man, where you been?
Well, you're a little older than I am. We're not going to talk about how old we are.
Gum, man.
Well, because listen, it goes into the next part. You talk about fishing Lanier and Hartwell in the early 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, I was born in the early 70s, so
Oh, yeah, you're a punk.
I am a punk. But let's talk about Lanier and Hartwell. How has it changed from fishing it back then, just the lakes themselves, to now?
Oh, it's huge difference. That back in the day, I remember we had our first bass boat was a Hydrosports, the old original Kevlar hull. Prior to that, we used to fish out of just a bow rider looking thing. I can't remember what it was, ski boat, bow road.
Right.
Anyway, and it was all largemouth plastic worm, Texas rigging, and it was all man's jelly worm. I told you earlier, my father, if it wasn't black grape, it won't in the boat.
Right.
You don't fish it. And we Texas rig.
Everything back in the day.
Back in those days, 20-pound line, 17, 20-pound line. That's probably why we didn't ever catch no fish.
Probably so.
As many
fishing with rope.
As many fish fishing with ropes and heavy action rods.
Now, back in the day, did you have graphs? Had they been invented by that time?
No, we were on flashers.
Flashers.
We were on flashers.
You were on flashers. Okay.
Back in then. But I will tell you, Lanier back in those days, we were fishing that heavy stuff, and the fish we did catch were, 12-inch fish. I mean, Lanier wasn't known as a big fish lake or a big spotted fish. I mean, that's all they had was spotted bass at the time, spotted largemouth, white bass, like that. But it wasn't until the mid-'90s when Lanier started to really explode, when somebody stuck blueback herring in it by accident.
And that changed the entire lake.
Oh, it's totally different. So was Hartwell.
Yeah, so that same thing happened in Hartwell.
Mm-hmm.
And so you would fish them the same when you went up there, Texas rig, just dragging it along.
Dragging it along. That's fishing docks, fishing brush, fishing standing timber, stuff like that. But Lanier was a little different when we came. We moved up into the 80s, and we went out to Orville. That was a life changer as far as fishing.
Gotcha. And the next life changing thing I think you would say is your visit to
Nisswa? Jim Wentworth?
With Jim Wentworth.
Yeah,
So
man.
tell everybody about that.
Well, that's how I really got into the sonar stuff.
Right.
I actually, I was always intrigued by it. And through the 80s, I was running, everybody's running Hummingbird Super 60s or Lowrance 2030s or 2060s, whatever they're called, 2260s. And I saw 3-color displays from Cytex. And Cytex was actually a Japanese company. They had 3-color displays. Their flashers were red for hard bottom, then orange for game fish, green for, bait fish. Well, heck, that's easy to check out then.
Right.
I'll tell you something. We used to catch a ton of fish spooning doing that because I could see the orange fish and drop down there. You can get it right on top of them. But I used to run a Cytex paper graph, and I was never on Lowrance or Hummingbird. I used to run all the Cytex stuff. And they were big into saltwater fishing over in Japan. And if you've never heard of Cytex, it's SI-TEX.
Right.
They're still out there right now. They're huge for the saltwater Japanese fishing stuff.
And what was it about this Jim fella that, you learned that really brought it into focus for you on the sonar?
Well, I read it. I was reading M Fisherman magazine.
Right.
And this was late 80s, early 90s. And I was reading that, and Jim Wentworth was talking about sonars, and he was talking about stuff that, I'd never heard of. And I read every fishing magazine and watched every fishing show you could imagine, and I never heard of any of this stuff. And he was rigging the in-fisherman boats, all the Lanier boats up there. And walleye fishermen are way ahead of us as far as electronics back in the day.
Right.
But they, and I picked up the phone and called him. There was an article on him about it, and I picked up the phone and called him. Next thing I know, I'm flying to Minnesota and spending some time up there, learning some things, befriended him, ended up buying his boat, which just won the Minnesota Boat Show in driving a Ryder van all the way back home and taking flags with me. I tell you,
Right.
We went through South Chicago. I picked up a friend of mine that was a pilot for American.
Right.
He was going to ride back with me. So I went from Minneapolis to Chicago. Then we were going through, I guess, South Chicago. Picked up a pizza. And then I had to make a U-turn. When I went through, there was some new store opening, grocery store opening. You know how they got those flags that go across?
And you took them down.
Every one of them. We was going down the expressway 60 miles an hour, looking like a Mardi Gras parade. We didn't even realize it until we got like to Tennessee, I think.
Everybody's looking at this fella.
Everybody laughing at us.
And you had no clue.
Yeah, no clue. We thought it was just because I was in a Ryder van pulling a
boat.
Pulling a boat. I don't.
Bless your heart. So
Yeah,
say that.
It was pretty bad, but we did look like a Mardi Gras play. It was pretty bad.
Memories.
Yeah. I want to tell you another one. I can't.
We'll do that in off air. How about that? So about that time too, it says you started guiding for the Bass Pro Shop out of Roswell.
A lot of people that's been around here, Roswell, Georgia, Bass Pro used to be over in Roswell called D.D. Hunt's Bass Pro Shop.
Was that the little one just
Little one off of Howes Drive right there on the right.
I remember
I used
that.
to, when I was about 24 probably, 23, 24, 25, around that area. I was a pretty good fisherman. I don't know, I'd been fishing since I was 3.
Right.
You know, but Dee asked me if I could take a couple of guys out fishing one day, and he wanted to go to Jackson Lake. I used to do it on Jackson, West Point, and Lanier. And went out, and they caught 2 biggest fish they ever caught in their life. We caught a lot of fish.
right?
And then that was back in the day when I was fishing a lot of Jack Chancellor stuff. Jack Chancellor won the 85, I think it was 85 or 86 Bassmaster Classic. And he actually befriended me, to be honest with you, because he heard I was catching a ton of fish on West Point. And wanted to know how I was catching them. And
So how were you catching them?
I was actually catching them on a spoon.
Okay.
Summertime spoon fishing. And this was before all the downshot and stuff.
Right.
And he befriended me. Next thing I know, he called me, and I helped him out during practice days, before practice on Lanier. He did real well in that tournament. Helped him on West Point. He did real well on that tournament. And
Same thing with the spoon on Lanier back in the day?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, think about it. I mean, what do they eat?
It makes sense to me. That doesn't mean I can catch
They
fish
eat
on
bait.
it, though.
They eat bait. So that was some fun time. I used to sell a lot of his baits. And when D.D. Hunt was there, I actually bought a company from an Italian guy named Whop Baits. And if you can't catch them, whop them. And it was crappie stuff and a lot of do-nothing worms and a lot of doodling stuff.
Gotcha.
But that was doodling. When I say doodling, this was about the same time we had gone out west, and it was close to the same. We ended up getting a little 4-inch doodling worm because of that. Before that, we had all 1-ounce weights with the swivels and the 8mm beads for the Carolina rig stuff.
So when did you actually get into drop shotting?
That was probably 86, 80. Well, drop shotting now was down shotting and evolved.
Okay.
I mean, I got into it back then.
So you've always done it in some form. It just
different. I mean, it's like now the drop shot weights now with the swivels and all in them. We didn't have that before. We were getting line twist terrible, and I can't remember. Somebody told me about putting a swivel on it, and I don't remember if it was my dad who made a call out west, to one of our. I don't remember how, but the swivel helped.
made a difference.
Made a big difference back in those days.
You start talking about you're perfecting your down shotting or drop shotting, all that, and you started coming into Lanier and you're catching all these fish, and word gets out on the forum. We talked about that. So tell everybody a little bit about how you started basically guiding on Lanier, stuff like that.
Well, I was catching a lot of fish on Lanier, and I was helping and like I told you earlier, I don't like throwing out names, but there's been a lot of money won on Lanier with people that have gone out with me and worked on sonar stuff and all. But back in those days, I was with Lawrence, and I had a nice deal with Lawrence. They had a rep in town called John Peters, and John and I, he worked me a nice little program up. Anyway, I was catching a ton of fish, and I was just lurking. I was a lurker on the GON forum, and all we heard about was, you read about how tough it was. People weren't catching any fish. It was May and June, July, August. They weren't catching any fish, and I was slaughtering them. I mean, I'd take friends out, or people from the food company or something, and we were slaughtering them. We were catching left and right. So it was my son and wife actually said, why don't you start taking some people out and doing it? So I posted on there finally one time, and somebody said, well, yeah, right. And I said, well, let's go.
So you posted how many fish you were catching?
Yeah. We'd say, I don't know why y'all are struggling. We had, 28 today. How are you struggling? We just caught 30 in about 2 hours. Right. What are you talking about? And one thing led to another, and it became basically every day. And I was just charging $60. Every day to go fishing 4 hours in the afternoon from about 4 to 8. A lot of it had to do with those were the times to fish too, because pulling water, when they release water during the warmer months is good. Now winter months is not, but warmer months is good.
And we're talking about Lanier.
Lanier, okay. Yeah. And that's how it kind of got started. One thing led to another, and it got to where it was every day. And so like I said, I don't ever call myself a guide. I just called it Lessons on Lanier. So we just started putting out flyers and putting stuff up about Lessons on Lanier. And some big name pros actually threw out some nice words. And before I knew it, I was out on the water making more money than $60
right.
every day.
You were the drop shot Jedi at this point.
Yep, I was the Jedi, and then that's when I actually got the call from Hummingbird, and that's how Hummingbird came into the picture. Because I was with the L words for a long way. You like that, the L word,
the L word,
and the G word,
right? You want to tell everybody what the L word is? Or you want me to do it?
You better. I might.
Lawrence.
Yeah.
And the G word is
Garmin.
All right. Just want to make sure clarify that so people are like, "What is he talking about?"
Yeah.
So okay. Also about this time, Wacom Baits.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about that. How did that come to be? Your relationship with them?
Actually, an affiliate or a friend. I can't remember exactly what Darren was. Darren was. He wanted to go fishing, wanted to go drop shotting. So we went out and caught some big fish and caught them deep and caught a lot of them. A few days later, I found out that he was part of or friends with Wacom Crazy Baits, back in the Wacom Baits.
And where were they out of?
They were out of Athens, just at Bogart, just outside of Athens.
Okay.
And they were a little local company. And so the owner contacted me. We met up, and he asked me to design some colors. I designed some colors, and they just went bonkers. That was LJ's Obsession and LJ's Passion. And they were two of the hottest colors in the country because Wacom started growing. They even sponsored Matt Airy back when he was getting going.
And what colors how would you describe the color of those two? Obsession
was a smoke with blue and purple flake.
Okay.
And Passion was a smoky purple with purple flake.
Okay. And how did you come up with those colors?
It had to do with light refraction and what bass see with their eyeballs.
Okay, so you brought up the term light refraction.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and cover it. Now you know a lot more about this than I do, so I'm gonna sit back for a second and tell everybody that's listening, just kind of what you're talking about with light refraction.
Light refraction is how the light penetrates the depth of the water, and colors change. some colors like red look great in shallow water, but as soon as they get below 20 feet, they basically turn opaque. They basically disappear. And a lot of colors do that. 3 colors stand out in deeper water. As for when I say deeper water, I'm talking 30 to 50 feet, 60 feet. That's greens or greenish chartreuse, kind of like my honey, my honey right here, my Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew.
Kind of like that color green, blues and purples.
They retain their colors.
They keep their characteristics down as deep. And I've proved this because when I test colors, I've got I used to use an old underwater camera. Now I've got a new one that I've actually used and dropped down just to see. I mean, you ain't got to look at them, but you'd be surprised at how much all looks the same down deeper, and then all of a sudden these don't. That's like that color I showed you, that natural shad. That took me 2 years to design, to get right, because the way the green and the black on the top of it, the green and the smoke actually.
So what we've got here, now what is this again?
That's called natural shad. Have you ever seen a threadfin or a herring that's been stressed or has been sitting in a live well or a fish spit up or something? They're always a little darkish green on top and still got their silver sides. That's how that one was, but I could never get it either looked too green or it looked too black, and I couldn't figure out why, and it ended up being that I just needed to go to smoke.
What does smoke do at that point?
The smoke is on top, the darker color, and I got a little black flake and a little green flake in there. Okay. So that gave it that blackish green hue that you'll see on, and if you can see it online too, you'll see they'll have a picture of a threadfin or have a picture of a herring, and when they're stressed, they turn a little darkish greenish blackish on top. Okay. And then the rest of it stays silver, and that's where that color came from. But I could never get. I did either get it too dark or I'd get it too light. I just never could. And then I figured out that smoke with black flake and the green flake.
That was the combination.
That was the magic. That was it.
Okay.
And that thing right there, that thing could catch some fish.
Now you did that color. That wasn't a color you did for whackum though.
No, for whacking was just passion and obsession. Mountain Dew, Sweet Rosie here. We used to be called Lanier Candy.
Okay.
We had Blue Ice. Blue Ice was the original. Blue Ice was the original Blue Lily. Right there.
Now this is the one that I
that's Sweet Rosie.
Okay. Now there was a story that we shared off air. I'm gonna share it with everybody. This is the one that you brought to Latham. Yeah. So Josh and I were fishing a tournament in Latham, and we had been given a little advice from a fellow fisherman that drop shotting was the way to go. And so, Josh went to Hammond's, I believe it was Hammond's, and he bought some of that. And so he comes up and he's rigging this, and I'm like, what the hell is that? What color is that? Why you're not gonna catch a fish, Josh? And we're very honest with that. You're not. And I think you pulled a spot out of about 30 foot of water. I think he got one out of about 30. And okay, there might be something to it, or something to this drop shot in this color. But you told me something very interesting about this color.
You thought the flake or how it changes to
how
a purpley?
It changes.
Yeah.
Now, at the time that we're throwing this, I have no idea because I just learned this from you today. Tell everybody about how the light refraction changes this color.
Well, it's like morning dawn. Morning dawn, the morning dawn color that we have. It's blue. I mean, it's pink with a blue line in it. You see the blue line?
I believe we had some of these too, did we not?
As it gets deeper in the water column, the pink and the blue, what are the color they form? Purple. And the same with that. When it gets a little darker, the Sweet Rosie, it'll get a little darker, kind of a purpley color, and then you can see just a little flicker.
Okay, so this is going to be a dumb question, but why not just make a purple worm?
I don't know. I can't say sweet purple.
So
Rosie was our red basset hound. I got to say sweet Rose.
Okay. So, but it's the way
well, we do have purple worms too.
But you're intentional on the color because you know it's going to turn opaque or something like that.
Yeah, down to a certain color. Down to a certain, like, let me tell you, that color right there, 30 foot or less. Have you ever seen a pink worm or a pink worm's kind of pinky purpley?
Right.
That's about what it looks like.
Okay.
When I saw it on camera, that's about what it looked like. It didn't stay real pinky.
So it just kind of
It kind of blended natural looking.
looks more natural.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And so when you design all these worms now using the light refraction, you know that this combination with this is going to result into this.
And that's right. And it's going to look different. It's like shallow. Like if I'm fishing like blue lily, if I'm fishing blue lily in 25 foot or less, it's going to look a little different than it will in 45 foot, but it's still going to be close to the blue color. I'll still be able to see it down there.
Okay, so the light refraction with Wacom that you learned that technique there.
I learned it easy. I learned it early on about that, and actually it was from I was messing around on a saltwater site, and they were talking about light refraction, and so I started looking at that and looking at that and looking at that, and I finally applied it towards the freshwater. So down to about 20, 25 feet, we can fish a lot of different colors. I mean, that's like right now. How many fish on Lanier you think seen green pumpkin?
I would say a bunch.
Think about it.
Right.
They've all seen it, but every lizard or every worm that falls into especially I'll tell you something that pink is really good at is when if you're fishing after a rain, fishing the bank with it.
Washed off.
There you go.
That makes sense. So you basically are killing two birds with one stone. So you've got the color in the shallow water, one color that, and as it gets deeper, you're basically transforming into
a different color.
That's
right. And a lot of it, I fish probably, everybody says, do you fish all these colors at times of the year? Yeah. I mean, that's like Jimbo and I. Jimbo and I are good friends, and Jim Farmer. And Jimbo's a caster. Right, that's what I always say. He's looking for 5 big fish.
Like this is what he says.
That's right. He's looking for 5 big fish, and I'm looking for 30. I don't care if they're a little deformed, their head too close to their tail. As long as I put them in the boat, that's fun fishing.
Right.
But I'm going to catch my big ones. I'm going to catch them too. But we were talking one time, and I told him about the colors, and he picked up one, and I think I want to say he told me it was 50 foot of water, and he picked up one and dropped down and caught a spot on it, and it was our red one with the purple. We call it bruised tomato. That was another one I helped design for Wacom.
Bruised tomato.
Bruised tomato. It was kind of a blood red with purple in it, and he caught one down there. Well, it wasn't because they could see red, because red's the first color that disappears out of the water column. Down about 20 feet, it just turns gone.
Just gone.
But it has that purple flake. They saw that little flicker.
So is that and I know this has to do with baits, has nothing to do with baits, but the line, the Cajun line, as I always said, disappears underwater. It's
the red. Yeah.
Is that real? Does that work?
It will down deep. But now it's going to stick out like a sore thumb in 20 foot or less most likely.
Okay, so you've got to go deep for that to really work.
That's my belief.
Okay.
And that's just from things that I've,
just
learned.
Your experience.
No. Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. All right, so I know we kind of jumped ahead with the baits here on Lanier, but about Wacom, when did it become, or how did that end, and then how did it transform into Lanier Baits?
Okay, about 2000. Well, around 2012 with the Wacom deal, that was about the time I got a phone call, and I was with Lawrence, and asked me if I'd be interested in hummingbirds or testing something. That's
Right.
what it was. It's testing something. And the guy called me. He was with Lawrence at the time. Everybody probably knows who it is.
It's up to you whether you want to say it or not.
Let's just say it's BC. It's Bill.
All right.
So the next thing I know, I said, yeah, I'll test it. A few days later, I got one in the mail. Put it on a board on the front of my boat that I could take it on and off. Had 2 transducers, tested it. A month later, he asked if I liked it, and I said, yeah, it's really nice. It's nice. And that's, about the mid-December, he told me he was leaving and going to Hummingbird, and asked me if I'd be interested. getting with Hummingbird. And next thing I know, I've been with him ever since. As soon as he got there, January 1st, maybe the 7th, I had units on the boat. I was getting them in.
And so now, but with Wacom, so they had gone out of business right in
well,
there?
welcome. No, about a year or two later, they'd gone out. They just tried to grow too fast.
Okay, so you were still with Wacom when this happened.
Yeah, well, we had opened up Lanier Baits. My son, the job market was bad, and we were selling Wacoms on our bait, even though I was doing it. Well, long story short, they just tried to grow too fast. Well, hell, I couldn't even get my formulas. They wouldn't give me the formulas to get my colors, so I had to go back to the drawing board, and so we just started basically pouring them baits and getting them made, and then my first month in business, I think I told you, Corey did 40 packs of worms, so 400 worms. And our last order, getting ready for the Gemini and for our tackle stores and online business, we just got in a little over 35,000.
So I believe it's grown.
A little bit.
So why don't you tell everybody kind of the spectrum of what Lanier Baits offers?
We've got a complete line of plastics, both for and we mainly focus towards finesse fishing. Got a complete line of drop shot worm or finesse worms. We've got some shaky head worms. I've designed our shaky Ned heads. We've got some swimmers.
That is this.
Yeah, and if you look at it, I don't know if y'all can see it, but this thing, look, I just put it down, and it stands up. And you know how shaky heads and the Ned heads stand straight up? I said, why you got to have two heads in the boat? Just make one daggum head. The 3/16 is what I throw for a shaky with our. I teamed up with Jimbo and Lanier to make the Jimbo Fat Finesse worms, and we fish that on this one. And I normally fish our 4-inch stick worm that I cut off an inch on this one. And this falls real slow. They're real weedless. They don't get caught up in rocks. And the first thing that does when a bass is nosing down on it, the first thing that goes in their mouth is the hook.
Because of the way they're coming down onto it. Instead of, you were saying never from the side.
Yeah, I mean, how many times you seen a bass sitting here and he walking up to it this way?
Right.
Most of the time when they see something, they go up to it and they're nosing down on it like this. I can see it on my drop shot a lot of times. You'll see a bass go down when they go down on it. They don't go down on a bait and then turn sideways on the floor.
Right.
They come down, they're sitting there looking at it, nosing down, and all of a sudden, boom, they'll hit it.
And so you designed it with that hook in mind to be at that angle.
I got the idea actually from Randy Howell's head. Randy Howell, the pro fisherman. Mm-hmm. I actually got it from his head. His idea.
Right.
But we made changes on it, like the small keeper.
Right.
So it won't tear up a finesse worm. You know how you put on a lot of these things and they just... The head of the worm gets torn up with the little bait keeper and all on there. They won't with these.
And you also said that you can do a Ned rig weedless on that.
Yeah, you can take Ned rig. Well, here's one. You can take it. Most people, they fish in the Ned rig. They got a hook.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the weed. I don't know if you can see that but that's the weedless one. But you can see you can rig it weedless. That's how I rig the shaky that's a shaky right there. And the Ned head is just a light 1/8 ounce. And I told you something earlier, too, that you can take your pliers, and if you just push these two sides in a little bit, you can clip them off or even just push them, just kind of flatten them a little bit. It'll slow the fall down.
And that was the story behind it, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it started at my dock, and we had a bed and fish right there, and I was just pitching into the... And I said, man, I keep pitching the same thing. I need something, a bluegill just doesn't show up out of the air and pop in there like he's, teleporting.
Right.
And so I just started messing around with it, and I got to where I squeezed the ends, and I casted it back, and it kind of shimmy slided in there.
Just from just a little modification that you made.
Just messing around.
Okay. So that's pretty interesting. So shaky head, Ned heads. You had some other type of hooks that I thought were interesting too.
Yeah, these are the ones my drop shot hook.
Okay.
I designed those. That's it's got a little 3-degree offset in them. I showed you all that 3-degree. It's got small little slashes on the thing so it doesn't tear up your finesse worm. It holds it well. But when you hook them, the eye's a little bigger. That way, a lot of people that's drop shot and understands how that knot gets wrapped up in there. Well, it helps it, doesn't wrap as much. And then that little 3-degree offset, every time you lift up on them, normally 90% of the time you hit them right here. You're catching them right where their little lip is, you see, just an inch left or right.
And that offset is what helps to
They just
to
spin
steer.
it kind of like true turn hooks.
Okay. All right. And how about these new style
Oh, my mortar weights.
mortar weights?
Those are my between the hooks and the mortar weights. Those are my prize. Those are. It took me a long time to figure this out. I used to use a long skinny bear bass jigs. They have a long thin drop shot. It's called, but those are mortar weights. Now that's a 3/8. The skinny bear was bigger than that, and I said, how can I get a smaller weight, get the feel, but get the true drop on it, get a true fall on it, and the mortar weight, it's shaped like a mortar, just like the military. And when it falls, it's got that little point on the nose, so it cuts the water. But then it gets wide on the outside for balance. And then once it hits the bottom, I've got more coverage with the thicker part on the bottom so I can feel the bottom better.
So I'm just curious.
And remember something, I use nothing but halves and 3/8.
Halves and 3/8.
And I've told people this, and they say, "Why are you going to do this?" Look, I can. How many times you seen people drop and they're doing like this to get their line out of their rod? Do it. I can always slow down a 3/8. I can't speed up a quarter or a 3/16. When I'm dropping, I put my rod tip down and I'm feathering it with my hand. If they're on the bottom, I just let it go. But if they're suspended, I'm feathering it and just slowing it down around them. Sometimes I just stop the bail in the line and just show it to them and just shake it around them some. If I can get their attention, a lot of times I'll hit it then. If they do, I just click over real quick and lift. I'm there.
You're very smart at this, but my question, when you design all this, is it just something from experience that you just from fishing so much stuff?
And feel.
You know what you want to feel, and so you can design it just based on that.
That's right. That's like when I'm fishing and say I'm fishing in 25 foot of water brush pile. I'm fishing at 3/8 weight, right? The weight's on the bottom, the bait's above it, right? I'm shaking that rod tip, and you're not really shaking it. It's like you're tacking a nail, just a little, and then stop it every now and then.
Like you're doodling?
Yeah, like I'm doodling. And then sometimes you can just give it slack. And when you do that, what happens is you're doodling like this, and you give it slack, and all of a sudden that thing just does this. It just starts to fall. And all of a sudden you'll just feel pressure where that fish hit it. It just looks like a dying bait fish. And you can lift it back up, and it
just triggers the strike sometimes.
Triggers it, yeah. And and you're talking about. I was talking about. Say I'm in 25 foot of water, and you drop your drop shot down, and you can feel that weight. You can feel what it feels like. Anything different between that most likely is a fish.
Any change in the pressure,
whether it's
of the
a little
line.
pressure, a little tick on the line. Sometimes you're sitting there fishing it, and all of a sudden it gets lighter. It got lighter because the fish just hit it and moved up. It's not going to move up on its own.
Right. And this mortar weight is a superior design to a cylinder.
To me, then the cylinder. The cylinder, if it gets a little bent, or if you drop a lot, the swivel. Mm-hmm. A lot of times the swivel will get bent, and when you do that, that thing won't drop true. I mean, that thing right there. When you drop it, it's going straight.
It's going straight down.
It's going straight, and it's just been. I mean, I tested it for a while until I finally got it, and I finally called my pourer, and I told him, I said, "Dude, I think we got it." And now that weight in 25 foot of water, this weight, which you can look at it and you can see it ain't a whole lot difference. I can feel that weight and it get down to the fish in 50 foot of water.
And this is the half?
That's the half, and it feels the same down that distance.
So the half at 50 foot feels the same as
3/8 at 25.
25. So you get that same feeling. So there's
I got
no
that
variation.
Yeah, because sometimes when you drop all the way down there with the 3/8 and you're in 50 foot of water, sometimes you can't feel like you can feel it.
Right. So the heavier weight helps
That's right. And what helps me with that is that nano braid I talked about.
I was getting ready to bring that up. You made a great point about the nano braid, because I had asked, we were talking about the line before we decided to record.
Yeah.
And I said, you need to talk about this. So tell us about the nano braid.
The nano braid is from Suffolk. If I'm with Rapala.com. They own about 10 companies, 8 companies, something like that. But Suffolk has a braid out. It's called Nano Braid, and it was specifically designed for finesse fishing. A lot of braids are a little stiffer, right? This one is almost like thread, but it's got tremendous knot strength. It's real subtle. It lays on a spinning reel. It doesn't coil. It cuts out all your line twist. And I use 8 and 10 pound on that. I use the 8 pound. I tell you, we ain't talked about spy bait yet, but I used on my drop shot.
We will.
My drop shot rod. I use a 10 pound nano braid. It's got like a 4 pound diameter mono. I mean, it's thread.
Right.
And I tie that to a 7 pound, 6 pound or 7 pound FC Sniper Sunline leader. And I normally tie an Alberto knot. And the good thing about an Alberto knot is that, and you learn at YouTube,
Right.
the harder the fish pulls, the tighter the knot gets.
And it is what kind of knot again?
Alberto.
Okay.
Go with them tacos.
Go with them tacos. Alberto. Because we had heard about a double Albright.
Yeah, people tell that. You're going to hear double unis. You're going to have double Albright. You'll hear an Albright. You'll hear an FG knot. The difference is I can tie that Alberto fast.
Okay.
I can tie it fast, and the Alberto, the braid is on the outside of the fluoro, so it kind of protects the fluoro. And I normally tie it out on the outside next to the reel, and then I reel up. I use a 7-foot rod, so by the time I reel up, I've got 12, 14 foot of leader. And there's times when I have to reel a couple of reels into it and to the reel. So I have a 20-foot leader. So, but between that weight, that braid, you know how sensitive braid is.
Right. And you said that this is super sensitive.
Nano braid is super sensitive, unbelievable knot strengths. And I can tell you right now, I use it on my shaky head rod too. I can make a 100-foot cast with that thing, and I can feel a peck 100 feet. I can feel a peck and just start lifting. I just start reeling, and this hook goes right into them because there's no stretch in it.
And now I noticed you very light leader line. You said
now on drop shot I use 6 or 7, depending on. Sometimes I've been down to 5, but I still use that 10-pound braid. I mean, it's thin. And I still use that braid. Just depending on how clear the water is, how the fish are reacting. A lot of times when I'll tell you something else. We've got a number 4 hook out too. That's a little short, small drop shot hook. If the fish are suspended a lot, I'll use that little open hook with one of the new shimmy shads, and it looks like a bait fish, but I'll use that open hook, and I just suspended. I mean, I'll catch him, 20 feet down over 45 foot of water.
Which is absolutely a great segue into the sonar, because without the sonar, you don't know that fish is there. And so the conversation that we had before we went on air, the things that you were telling me about sonar, I never knew. Okay, so you can give a primer right here for somebody on sonar. Let's start from the basics.
Well, before we get there, I want what I was talking about with that weight.
Yeah.
Between that braid and that leader with the Alberto knot.
Uh-huh.
And we're going to do tacos, right?
Right, we're going to do tacos.
Okay. And that weight in 50 foot of water with that braid and that setup feels the same as that smaller braid, 25 foot. And that's sensitive.
Right.
And I can feel the flame. So when I'm dropping down there, any difference in how that feels, I guess I'm so in tuned, and that's when I take people out fishing. I tell them, look, it's going to take, you might be one of the gifted ones and it take an hour, or it might be 3 hours, but eventually you're gonna hit a fish and it's gonna click and you're gonna say, I felt that all day long. And next thing you know, they're just like they're dropping, catching. Now go back to sonar. Now to sonar.
You did say that about halfway through you were going to take over and start running the thing, right? Ain't that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he'll cut.
You got my check.
Yeah. check. We need you to leave a check or something. You leave a check when you leave. All right, let's segue into the sonar, because with any finesse fishing these days, it seems like there's a combination of the technique and the sonar. Mm-hmm. And as we previously discussed with each other, there's a lot to it. And
there's more than you think there is.
Well, absolutely. I'm finding that out.
Video game fishing is more than just looking and dropping.
Absolutely. So you're the expert. I'm just going to sit back. Why don't you tell everybody, I guess you can tell about what you offer, in your services with that, but tell them a little bit about the sonar itself and how it's kind of changed over the years since you've been fishing.
Oh man, it's night and day now.
Yeah, that way there's a lot to that, so I can take a break.
I mean, that's going to take. How long we got? We got till next Tuesday.
Well, I can go to the restroom or whatever I need to do. Just you talk.
Sonar's good. Well, I will tell you, when Bill got me over on Hummingbird, that's when I was testing that stuff. That's when I finally realized just how good Hummingbird really was. And it's not, anybody that gets on my boat now, I installed and sold over 50 boats last year as far as the sonar sales and installs, from $500 to $10,000 sonar systems on the boats. And I didn't realize, when people get on my boat and they see what I see, and I pointed out to them, like I told you about bumps on the bottom.
Right.
I'm looking for one little dot, one little red line or one little dot that tells me that's actually a fish on the bottom. And when you see a whole bunch of those dots on the bottom, and I'm not talking about imaging, I'm talking about 2D. I told you a story where I was on a trip. This was just a few weeks ago. And he was a very good fisherman. They were both very good fishermen, but they had never seen it. We pulled up on a ditch, and I said, oh, my God, it's loaded. And they looked down, and they said, I don't see nothing. And I said, there's a huge school of them right on the bottom. I said, watch this. And I dropped my drop shot down. And then I lifted it up 4 or 5 feet off the bottom. And it was 2 or 3 seconds later, all of a sudden looked like 5 or 6 fish all come up. And they was like, oh, my God. And it was all about what I was seeing. And we went on to catch, I think we caught 9 or 10 fish right there with some 3s and 4s in it mixed in there. And they were just shocked. They didn't know that.
And what's your setup on your boat currently?
I run the new 8s. I love them, and a lot of it has to do with pixel count versus screen size. I run 4 8s. I've got 2 8s on the dash and 2 8s on the bow. The front one,
And these are Hummingbird. What model?
Hummingbird Helix 8s.
Helix 8s.
Right. I've got mega down imaging. I don't even use side imaging no more. Even though I will say, mega side imaging is awesome, especially on the birds. Their imaging is unbelievable. Shout out to all you IT guys,
right?
All you engineers. But they're really good, and but my system, I've got down imaging, and then I have 2D and mapping. The only 2 settings and views, I turn off everything that I'm not using. On like my imaging, for instance, my that one unit, I've got everything off. All the power is going to down imaging, and going to my sonar. The other one has got mapping in 2D on it, 2D sonar. Everything else is turned off. Now on the bow of my boat, I've got everything off on one of them except chart, and I zoom in chart 50. I'm at the 50-foot mark. I run Lake Master chips on all of them, and I even showed these guys how to set up that Lake Master to show the ditches and what's considered a ditch on the lake. And I said, watch this, and I did that, and we were going down the lake, and you could just see hundreds of ditches everywhere. You just got to ride the ones, find out which one has bait in them.
And that's something that without that technology, a lot of people, they miss that.
Knowing how to do it. And they might not think about it. They might say, because Lake Master has what's called an offset. So mine's set right now to 40 foot with a 10-foot offset. So anything 30 to 50 is going to show up in green. Well, when the ditch runs like this, 30 to 50.
So it's the view that you got, the way the coloring is.
That's right.
On your screen.
That's
that lets
right.
you know that's a ditch.
That's right. And then that's on bow and front. They're all set up the same. Now my other one up front is my sonar one. I've got full sonar and zoom, and that's it. Everything else is off.
And tell everybody why everything is off for you. You told me a couple of reasons.
I want all the power to go to, first of all, how many views do you need?
Right.
How many views do you really use? I ask that question every time on a sonar trip. How many views do you really use? Well, I use this one, I use this one, I use this one. I said, well, that's 4 of them. They've got 17 in here. So let's take out these other 13. And to me, it just speeds up. They're computers. The more mess you got going on in the background and the more mess you got on, the slower it's going to be. And, call it just an LJ-ism.
LJ-ism, okay.
LJ-ism, but
Right.
if it's going to take power away from what I want to use it for, I don't want it on. So I turn off everything. And I even my units, I've only got 2 linked. 2 of them are independent. If something ever happens, one of them, I can just switch a wire, and be fishing again. But I've got them situated that way because simplicity is best, and that's that's LJ's world. Simplicity is best. When I've got 4 12s all linked together through a 5-port box and all that, that's an awesome system. But I'm too dumb that if I get 1 or 2 settings off, man, it's kind of like you. You
Kind of like me.
You kind of fishing with the transducer that's pointed the wrong way.
Okay, listen. We've got to tell everybody this. Full disclosure right here. We had a conversation before. This conversation that took place. Josh was working today, so he was running a little late, and so the Jedi and I had a little bit of time to talk, and we were talking about stuff, and he was explaining it to me, and come to find out, my transducer is mounted wrong on my boat.
It's backwards.
Backwards, and I don't know how, but that's what he says. So I was asking him the question, exactly how, what am I looking at? And it just comes to find out I was looking at stuff that the boat's done gone by the whole time.
You've been looking at stuff.
No
wonder.
The reason we can't catch any fish on our tournament is because they're 55 foot behind the boat, and I'm throwing at them on the front of the boat.
It was a high-speed transducer. That's forward facing, and that's I said, which way is it pointed? He said, that way. Well, no what?
So just for everybody that's listening, he got a big kick out of that. And
I bet you've never seen your drop shot going down, have you?
No.
Yeah.
And so, now he's embarrassed me to whoever decides to hear this, but that's fine. I learned something. I'm going to have to take one of your sonar guides, your sonar trips, and you can explain to me, what I messed up.
You'll be blown away.
Evidently. Let's just get the fundamentals down with the transducer.
Man, I'm telling you, 99% of the people that, I've had over, I want to say it's over 50 boats this year. I've had over 50 boats with sales and installs, and 90% of them came from Elward or Garmin.
Right.
And that's just after they were on most of them were customers. Most of them were people that got on my boat and saw the units, and they were like, oh, my God.
It's a whole different world.
Yeah, and that's, a lot of people use a lot of people have them big $10,000 systems. I've mounted them on there, and they're great. They're just too, I don't know, I guess I'm what word am I looking for? I'm too simple.
Old.
Yeah, it could be that. Could be that. Let me ask you something.
Oh, Lord.
Let me ask you something.
Go ahead.
Did you ever see Marilyn Monroe alive in her 20s?
No.
Well, I did. I dated her.
Did you? That's how old you are? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, you're a lucky man. You're a lucky man. And you're a good liar.
Yeah, I told John Kennedy he need to move. He need to get out of He need to get out of the way.
Okay, I got you. Well, I said that I got you again. Do you
That's 5.
We talked about that too, yeah. So We're just for everybody wants to know, we're keeping up with the times I say I got you.
Gotcha.
And that's gonna get cut out. I already know, so we're good on that. One of the things in our conversation, though, that you explained to me that I thought was really interesting was chirp technology.
Mm-hmm.
So for somebody who is just a weekend angler, they're looking to buy even a simple unit to put on an aluminum boat or something like that. Exactly what chirp is, how they can use it, how that will help them.
Chirp is a I say the old days, but you're only talking about a couple of years ago.
Right.
They had, you got a 200 kilohertz frequency, you got an 83 kilohertz frequency, or you had a 200/83 kilohertz frequency. The 200 was a third of the water depth. So if you're in 30 foot of water, you got a 10-foot cone down there.
Right.
83 would have been the water depth. So you'd have a 30-foot cone, right? The blues and reds that you see, if you see arches or see fish underneath you in the blues and reds, those are in that 30-foot cone, the wide cone, but they're not in the center cone, the main cone. As soon as they go yellow, they're in that center cone. They're right below you. Chirp, instead of having one beam going down on that, I can put mine on wide. If you go into your menu, sonar menu, right at the top it says full, wide, or narrow. Click over and go to wide. That gives you the cones. Each cone now, Chirp is, if you'll go into setup and you go into Chirp configuration, you'll see where it says 2D settings, Chirp 150 to 220. So you got a beam going down 150, 151, 152, 153, 154. You got 70 beams going down. So when you tweak that sucker up, you can see fish playing cards down in 50 foot of water.
Because you got 70 beams
You
going
got
down.
70 beams going, you better be able to separate something. That allowed, the old days, I had to really tweak a unit with that straight up, with 83 200 to see fish right on the bottom. Now it'll just about tell me. You just got to know what to look for. And I can see them down there. When I see them down there and I show them to people, it's pretty amazing to see a guy that's never drop shotted before catching fish out of 45 foot of water with a drop shot, knowing that he just got a hit.
And what you're describing, I know, we don't have one in here. Kind of describe what you're looking at. You mentioned to me the yellow to the red,
We pulled up on that school I was talking about earlier, a big school. It was yellow. I'm on pallet 1, so it's yellow, right? And you could see the bottom, but there was a lot of red mixed in. Think of it this way: there was this an inch, and there was red and yellow all down there. Well, something is causing that. If it's a bottom, it's the bottom, but it looks like the bottom. But it's actually a school of fish that was on the bottom. When you see little bumps on the bottom, if you'll look close, you'll see a line, that kind of a reddish line that kind of forms the bottom.
Right, it's what separates the yellow that is the bottom.
That's right.
And the water above, that little red line.
That little red line. All right, well, if there's a stump or a rock, that's part of the bottom. You'll see the yellow go up into it, right?
Which basically is
draws
the stump.
it up. Now, if it's a fish down there, you'll see the line going down, but you'll see the line go above the fish. But if you look close underneath, you might see one little old dot, one or two little old red dots. That tells you there's separation down there.
And that's what you're looking for.
That's what I'm looking for. And you got to have a keen eye, and you got to know what to look for. Once you get used to it and understand what you're looking for, you can find tons of fish.
Just by that little red dot.
I can pick them out in 50 foot of water like they're sitting right here on the table with me.
If you were recommending to the intermediate person, okay, how about this? Let's recommend a system for your weekend angler, and we can stick with Hummingbird and all that. For your weekend farm pond, small water reservoir angler, what kind of unit would you recommend for that? You're just talking about a single unit.
How deep of water?
Let's just say 50 foot would be the deepest. Because some of these reservoirs are pretty deep.
I'd go with either a 7 or an 8.
A helix.
A helix, 7 or 8. See, the 8's a little more advanced. It's got a little more features. It's got a little more power. Draws a little bit more amps. It draws 1 amp instead of 0.7 of an amp, 0.70, 0.700 mini amps, whatever the MCA stands for.
Right. Again, somebody figured that out. An engineer.
But the sevens are the pixel count on the 7 is 480, and vertical pixel count. So it's sharp with that 7-inch screen. The 8 is 600. So for 1 inch, you're getting 120 more pixels. It's really sharp. Those are mine. That's the 8s, and the 7s and 8s are my favorites. Now, don't get me wrong. The 10s and 12s and the Solix models, they're awesome. I mean, they're great units. I just like the size and the what I can see on the 7s and 8s.
So you can see as much on a 7 and 8 as you can on a 12.
It's just not as big, and I have more flexibility. I can run 4 8s with the same, basically the same or less power draw as 2 12s. I've got a lot more flexibility. I've got 2 screens. I mean, I got a full. Somebody says, "Why don't you just get a 12?" I say, "Well, on these 2 7s, I got 14 inches of screen. You only got 12."
Right. That is the way.
Now I've got 8. I've got 8s. I've got 16 inches of screen. That's a lot of screen.
And you say that the draw on the energy is less, which would be pretty big for somebody that, especially an electric only guy.
Yeah, electric only guy. The 10 and 12, I think they draw 1.8, 2 or 2 amps, somewhere around there. I know a Solix unit draws up to around 3 amps, if I'm not mistaken. But the 7 draws 0.700, so 7/10 of an amp, and the 8 draws 1 amp.
Big difference in a transducer from the 7 to the 12, or is it the same?
They're all the same.
So it's the same. So you just basically the only difference is screen size.
Screen size, and pocket size.
And pocket size, I understand.
Pocket size,
and that's important for the average.
Yeah, the average guys. That's another thing. A lot of people, when they get on my boat, they see me running. Last year I was running 4 7s. They see me running the 7s, and I think they wake up. I think they realize, well, man, I don't need 2 12s up here. I don't need. Look how you see a full 7-inch screen of sonar. That's a lot of screen, and when you zoom in on it, you can. It's a lot of screen. They realize, man, you can get 2 7s for $1,000, or you can get 1 12 for $1,700. You're
right. And I guess too, you can have a couple of different screens or.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. There's a lot of different. See the 7s, and that's just me. I'm Hummingbird. I'm sure Hummingbird probably makes a lot better, return on their investment with the 12s and the 10s. I just don't like those big boxes. Hell, I'm short. I have trouble seeing over. I have trouble seeing over the steering wheel, much less 24 inches of screen.
Right. I get that. I totally understand that. So,
but people that got on my boat and they saw my 7s and see my 8s working, they're shocked. They're like, holy, how do I get this?
So you'd recommend that to a guy that come in with a $70,000 Phoenix?
That's what he wanted. He'd ask.
You would say your opinion. You say just go with 7s or 8s.
8s, even 9s. But if they want the 10s, that's fine. No, that don't matter to me, man. That makes more money.
Well, I understand that completely. So,
but the 7s are. Telling you, the 7s are really, really good. And so are the 8s. The 8s are excellent. The 9s are excellent. And then you start, and when I say those, see, the 7s and 8s to me are the average man's units. That's all they need for weekend warriors, local tournament fishermen, this, that, and the other. Now, the 10s and 12s, that's what most people go with. They're great, but I'd rather have 2 units versus 1 unit, pulling the same amount of power as that 1 unit, but having all that flexibility.
That makes perfect sense.
I can see a lot more. I can change, things. I can put different screens up instead of just that one.
Okay, and so
that's like, when you got 3, you put up 3 on a big screen. They've got down imaging, 2D, and mapping.
Right.
And they're all small screens on that 10 or 12 inch. Well, I've got full size imaging with half a page of 2D sonar, half a page of mapping. But I can get bigger pictures of it.
I got you.
And see it. So.
That makes sense. Okay, so you pretty much consider yourself a finesse fisherman, and you've kind of talked about the drop shot a lot today.
A little bit.
Some of the equipment that's used, I'm assuming spinning rod. You said 7-foot rod, so is there a reason why you like the extra length for when you're drop shotting?
I use 6 and 7 foot.
Okay.
And I use them, and a lot of it has to do with, I'm with Okuma. Okuma cut me a deal a long time ago. But also, FX Rods made me a deal to some custom rods with my name on it. And I sell a lot of those, but I like a 7-foot or a 6 rod, medium action, fast tip. A lot of people make the mistake of getting too limber a rod and dropping. And when you lift, you first got to take up some line, but the reel is the key on that, and I'll get to that. But when I'm standing on my boat, I'm standing up front. When my rod tip's out in front of me and I'm dropping, I want to make sure that I'm dropping around the trolling motor. I don't want it too far forward. And these boats nowadays, they have the recessed pedal way up front. And when you drop, you got to kind of put your arm behind you to get it near the trolling motor because it's so far forward. A couple of boats, I will tell you, if you've ever seen, is the Blazer. Blazer's a great boat, by the way, and I don't even want to own a Blazer, but that is the perfect. Their recessed foot pedal is perfect based on where the trolling motor.
And the trolling motor because of the sonar.
Yeah,
Okay.
got sonar in the trailer, and then when I'm dropping, though, when I'm comfortable, when I'm sitting there and I drop, my rod tip is near that trolling motor. It's not, 2 feet in front of it. And the new boats nowadays have their recessed pedal all right up next to the bow panel.
Yeah.
And, I mean, by the time you drop, I'm way away from it. I'm wayful.
You're out of the cone?
Sometimes. It takes you a little longer until it gets down into the deeper water to see it. Somebody says, why can't I see it? I say, well, wait another 5 feet, 6 feet, and all of a sudden you'll see you'll see it starting to show up because the loan gets wider.
I understand now. Okay.
No.
All right. So,
But that's Okuma, 7-foot rod, medium action. I use the carbon light rod, the carbon rods.
can you tell a big difference in the sensitivity with them?
You can with that nano braid.
With that nano braid.
With that nano braid, I'm telling you, you can feel a fish sneeze on it.
I'm going to go out and buy some tomorrow.
I mean, the Okuma, and that's the EVX rod. The EVX rod and the Scott Martin TCS rod, I'm pretty sure were the exact same rods, except they put some blue on Scott's.
Okay.
That's what I've got a ton of EVX. I love the EVX. And on casting like swim baits and top one and stuff like that, I use the reflection. It was specially designed. They have all the high-end components on it. I mean, for braids and everything else. The reflections were actually designed for sensitivity with extra lifting power to flip fish. And when you lift them, you ain't got to worry about breaking it.
Right.
And you can lift. They were specially designed, basically to lift.
Okay. And when you throw a drop shot, and now throw is not the right word, but we did talk a little bit about casting a drop shot. In what situations would you cast or instead of just dropping?
I do that a lot in the fall when they're on ledges. They start moving up on rocks and little shallower ledges. In the spring, when they're moving up a little shallower, I do a couple of things differently though. I'll take we have our 3/8 ounce weight. I'll cut it in half and make it about a quarter, or either I'll just get a quarter drop shot weight. And then I tag in. I make the tag in longer. I make it about 2 foot instead of 12, 15.
And that would be 12, 15 would be normal.
That would be normal. And now the winter time, I'm down to about an 8 foot, 10 foot tag in right now. I'm getting it right on the bottom with them.
Okay.
Sometimes I have to sit it above their heads and they'll come up. But when you cast, because of the angle, I mean, think about it. And I'm dropping like this, and it's 12, it's right here. But if I'm casting and I'm pulling, and it's coming at an angle, it's getting the bait down on the bottom.
If you have a short leader.
If you have a short leader. And now if I wanted to, like I said earlier.
Or tag in, I guess the tag is right
the tag
there.
in short. If I was going to get it right on the bottom, I'd just throw a shaky head. Like I was talking to you. So getting about a 2 foot leader will get that bait up off the bottom in the water column a little bit. And,
So as you're coming back towards the boat, it's staying up.
It's staying up because of the angle of the cast, and the way the line's coming back at you. I mean, it's going down at an angle. So a little longer lead, if you get it too short with that angle, you're only this far off the bottom, But if you get it up 2 feet, it's up in the water column a little bit. And that's what drop shotting's all about, is keeping it off the bottom,
Right, or you would just use a shaky head.
Yeah, or I'd just use a shaky head or something else.
That's a pretty good tip. That's going to be our official.
And I'll tell you something else. That shaky head, Ned head we got, the shaky Ned, you throw that with that nano braid, get you some 8 or 10 nano braid with a medium action rod, and then tie whatever side. I use 7 pound. I use 7 pound exclusively on my shaky heads. That 7 pound FC Sniper is just tough as nails. I mean, you could probably pull a car out of a hole with it. But that with that shaky head, I'm telling you, not only can you throw it a half a mile, but you can the slightest little tick, and then the hook set is very similar. My hook set on a shaky head is just like my drop shot. You just lift and start cranking the handle. That's another thing about the drop shot a lot of people miss. When they're dropping down and they feel a fish, they lift up, right? They lift up and they hold it. Oh, there he is. Yeah, looking good. Well, you just probably lost the fish in the brush. The key is the reel. The reason is when you're dropping these down, and that's why that long shank, you can rig it weedless, so get it right down in the middle of that brush. When you drop down there and you hit a fish, you feel one and you lift on him, the key is the reel. Crank it 4 or 5 real fast times. Lift just like that. And what you're doing is, and that's what, you're just taking some slack up with
When
the
you
lift.
lift the rod, okay.
The lift. The reel is what's burying the hook, but it's not snatching him. It's not getting him, snatching it and in the brush. But by doing that and lifting and reeling, that hook would get in and that fish would just steer. You can just steer his head straight up out of the brush. Now, what happens after you get him out of the brush is up to you.
But that's the key.
But by
to
doing that, by lifting and reeling 4 or 5 times, that fish would just come straight up like that, and you'll get him out of the brush.
Now, how many pros have you told that secret to? If
I've had several in here
that little tip. I know you're not dropping names, but they didn't know that little technique.
No, they didn't realize it. They didn't think about it.
And what'd they say when you told
They
them
were
that?
just saying like this. And one of their complaints was that they either lip hook fish, they either lip hook fish and lose them in brush, or they just lose them in brush. And I said, well, try this. And you know where I've figured that out from?
No, I don't. Go ahead.
Charlie Brewer slider fishing. He would cast, and we fill a fish. He'd do this, and then he'd reel 4 or 5. He'd just lift and reel 4 or 5 times, and it would just steer that fish's head. So says Charlie. He's passed away now, but it would steer that head out of the brush and out of something, and you're not snatching him to like, if I come up and I just punch you. You're going to react, right?
Absolutely.
And if I come up and just kind of pat you around here, like, they say, come on. Some girl comes up and slaps you. That's one thing. She come up and pat you like this. You're going to follow her.
I guess that's one way of describing
but
this.
You're kind of finessing them. You're just kind of steering them, and they'll do that. Especially, that's really important on the drop shot. But yes, I did. I can tell you right now, there's been a lot of money won knowing that.
Okay. Anything else on the drop shot? Any little secrets or Jedi advice that you might want to give to somebody?
Well, did we already talk about you can slow it down? You can slow down a 3/8 or a half, but you can't speed up a quarter.
You did,
or a 3/16.
You did mention.
Well,
that
that's key in feathering it down. I mean, you see fish suspended. A lot of people just drop out. The fish suspended. You see them on the screen. They drop out. And just go, just flying through them. Just kind of feather it down with your hand. Just feather it down and slow it down. And when you get around them, just put your hand on the reel to hold it. and just lift it up and down a couple. Give them an idea to look, and then let it fall a little further. And as soon as you do, you'll see them start going down. And I'll tell you something: do not let that braid get in front of those at their eyes. Just let it down fast enough to where the fluorocarbon and the worm stays in front of them. Don't let that braid get in front of their eyes, because science tells us a fish's eyesight is 8 times better in water. So if I can see 5 feet, they can see 40. Trust me, they're going to see that braid.
Makes sense.
So,
That makes perfect sense.
so they're going to see it, and that's, and you know, other than that, you know, when you know how fish gets crazy acting on you when they get near the boat, they see the boat and they try to make that run. I always
Well,
try.
as few as I catch, no, but yeah.
Okay, well that third one you caught last year,
Right. Yeah. About August.
about August. I always try to get a little longer leader. I mean, I told y'all this. I tied the Alberto knot on it, and I try to reel it into the reel 1 or 2 times most of the time. And the reason is, if when that fish gets up to the boat, I want that knot on the spool instead of sticking out, because they're always going to, you know, they see the boat, they make a strong run. They're going to try to turn and run.
That's a good tip.
And
right
I like
there.
that. So, I mean, when you're dropping down, sometimes the knot will get, you know, click. It's a 0.2 of a second pull.
Right. That makes perfect. You also said something too I thought was interesting. The benefit of drop shotting compared to casting, as far as not spooking fish.
Well, no, it pulls them. What happens is, if I'm casting and say I'm working a fluke or a top water and I catch a fish, or they're just following me, I'm pulling all those fish off the brush, right? And it's going to take them time to get set back up on it. When I'm dropping and I go up there and I snatch one and I reel them up, I'm bringing them straight up. You can see all the fish come above, following the fish, signing what's going on, then they go right back down on it. So I haven't pulled the fish off the brush.
You just pulled them vertically.
I just pulled them vertically. I tell you something else. I showed this to a couple of college fishermen with the spy bait. We ain't got to talk.
We're
about
getting
that.
there. We're getting
well,
there.
wait, about the spy bait. We spots are notorious for suspending. They'll suspend off, you know, out 25 foot of water, you know, over 40 foot, but they're going to be looking at some kind of brush or flat, you know, or something kind of feeding.
So
flat.
they're going to relate to something.
They're going to relate
yeah.
to something. And a lot of times you can go in there and you can drop straight on. I can see the fish as I'm going in. So I get in there and we'll go ahead. I said, let's go ahead and drop. We'll drop, and a few seconds later, a minute later, all of a sudden, here comes a school of fish out of nowhere. Or sometimes we can go in there and I just came over them and I'll turn around and I'll throw the spy bait out to them, sink down about where they were sitting and start reeling. Before you know it, a school of fish shows up. I've actually pulled the fish into the brush at where we're fishing at. I mean, you know, sitting out and suspended, it's, you know, it doesn't give me much of a waypoint to sit on top of. They're going to be out there somewhere, but if they move 15 feet, I can't find them. Whereas my waypoint is over here, so I want to pull those fish to that waypoint.
And so let's just segue right into the spy bait, since you just said that you were able to do that. Describe to everybody what exactly a spy bait is.
Spy bait is a little double prop bait. It's got it's about 3 inches long. And they've got one out of 2 inches. They've got some different ones out now, but it's a prop bait, and it's a slow sinker. And what it does is it'll ride at the depth you count it down at. So it's got 2 or 3 things about it. First of all, cast it out. It sinks about a foot a second. It's good. So once it gets down there, then you start your retrieve. It'll stay at that thing. Well, it's got 3 characteristics about it. It's got the plume effect, it's called. The 2 little props are spinning, and it kind of gives it a, you know, like a...
So like a auditory...
That's right. It has... They roll like this. They got a little slow roll on them, right? And when you stop it, and when I stop it, I'll push my rod tip back towards it, because when I stop it, instead of it doing this and just kind of pulling like that, if you stop it and give it back to them, it'll start falling straight, just doing like that.
If you give it a little slack.
That's right. And then the fish you hit a lot of times as soon as you start back up with it.
Well, what makes it so special? I mean, it just seems like it's very simple.
It's really simple. the Japanese call it the silent capture.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's called silent capture, but it is a killer.
So it's a Japanese design.
Oh
concept?
yeah, it comes. Yep.
Okay,
And I'm with Duo Realis. I get a lot of Duo stuff. They got one out I was using this past summer. It's their new 72 Alpha, it's called. It's about 2 inches long, but it weighs a half a pound with all the, a half an ounce with all the.
I was going to say, that's not a slow sinker.
With all the characteristics of a spy bait. And it was designed to throw on a bait caster. So you can, with a spinning rod or a bait cast, you can fish it with 10-pound line. You can throw it from here to, we can throw it from here to Stone Mountain, and counts down the same. A little steady retrievement, and it's got steady, little heavier duty hooks on it. Hold bigger fish. I caught some stripers on it. I've caught some big spots on it.
Is there a time when it would be preferable to the drop shot?
I use the spy bait 90% of the time. Anytime I know they're going to be chasing bait. So that starts about probably April's when I'll start it. Sometimes I throw it in March. I threw the 80 series, which is a lighter one. I throw it up shallow, and you can catch a lot of fish with that. But normally about April, May, when they really start chasing bait, and on them through up through 1st of November, I'll throw especially when you're up chasing them.
So it's not a wintertime bait, or you don't like to use it?
I don't like to use it in the wintertime. Now they say they say you can catch a lot of fish. David Swinseed swears by. He's the Duo guy in North America. David swears about catching them in the wintertime on it. I don't know.
Just not your thing.
That's just not my thing. I'd rather drop and spoon them.
Okay.
My domeki rig, drop it down there on them.
Okay. So you've mentioned spoons several times today.
Mm-hmm.
You still use that on your guide trips?
Yeah.
Okay. So is that a wintertime, summertime?
It's winter and summer.
Okay.
I mean, hey, they're feeding on bait all the time. You can just hop it faster and harder during the summer.
Now, do you prefer a flutter spoon, or you want?
Yeah, I use a like a Hopkins. Actually Georgia Blade, Mike Shepard and Pam Shepard over there. They make a great product. They make good stuff. They're good people too.
They are good people.
They make a great product, and I use their spoons. We've got them on our website, but I use halves and 3/4, and I don't get too crazy. I know I've got some blues, whites, silvers. That's about where I'm at. Some pearlesque looking ones, that little pearlesque looking.
What about the one they got now with the blade, that Georgia Blade?
The sheepoon.
The sheepoon.
I caught a monster on a sheepoon the other day.
Really?
I did. I absolutely did. I was just trying it. They swear them down, I think, for schooling fish. I'm not, I got to talk to them more about that, because they sent me one or two to try. And I tied one on the other day just messing around. And I dropped it down, and I casted it out and I hopped it back. That's how I caught that fish. And about a 4-pound spot. I mean, it took the rod out of my hand. So I guess that blade upset it.
Now, when you say hop it,
made a cast, let it go to the bottom, and I don't think my reflexes are fast enough.
right?
Some people hop it, and then follow it down, hop it and follow it down. I don't. I cast out. I put my rod tip about 9 o'clock, not 9 o'clock, maybe 7, 8. Where am I at here? 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
I guess you're all
1
over the place.
o'clock.
I can't tell what time.
And once it gets to the bottom, I'll just say just 3 or 4 quick reels, and it just shoots up off the bottom.
So you're not moving your rod. You just using a reel.
but the reason I do that is that then if I feel any tick, I just nail him.
Okay.
I don't have to reel back down and try to nail him. I set it here, and then hit him.
I got you.
And
I'm glad we got the cameras, because I don't know if anybody.
That's I'm trying to make this realistic.
That's good stuff. So, on a guide trip, spoons, spy bait, drop shot. Would you say that that's pretty much what you fish with 99?
What time of year?
Well, I don't know. Let's just let's say right now we're in December.
Right now, I've got 3 baits on my boat. I've got a drop shot, I've got a domeki, and I've got a spoon.
Okay, explain the domeki rig.
Domeki is and I normally fish it deep.
Okay.
now you can get a lighter weight. I use a 3/8 head. It's just a head with a big eye on it, 3/0 hook, and mine I use have my that little keeper right there. Mm-hmm. I use the shimmy shad on it, or I actually take this one. I'll show you a trick I've been playing with, and it really works really well. I don't know if you get this, but I take our little 3.5 swimmer, and I cut it right here. I cut it right behind the head.
Right behind the head.
And then I'll take it on the tail right here. I'll take it and I'll cut it right where it starts, so it leaves me just a little bit of thing on the back. And the reason I do that, when I put it on here now, it sits like this. It's just a 90-degree head, so it sits to where it's, it looks similar to that right there.
Okay, just hold it up to that camera. Maybe.
Yeah. Looks similar to that right there. And what you do is you drop it down, and it looks just like a drop shot. I mean, when it's going down, except it has one line instead of two. And as soon as it gets on top of, standing timber, say 40 feet down, I'll stop it right on top of it, and you just kind of hold it there and just kind of barely move it, like a shimmy, and every now and then you can lift it up, and all of a sudden you'll see them come up and just boom.
So it's kind of very similar to spoon fishing when you're just dropping a spoon.
Spoon is, you're doing this. Sometimes you're just leaving it there. With this, it's more like a drop shot. Domeki, you drop down, and I can go all the way to the bottom with it. You drop it down, and I'm just barely doing this. That's all I'm doing is right here. Just barely shaking it to where it's doing like this in the water. And I found by leaving just that, cutting about half that tail off and leaving that a little bigger piece back there, it lets the bait shimmy better.
Now, what are you just mimicking? Just a bait fish just sitting
It's a
there?
bait fish just sitting there. And every now and then you can lift it up like he's trying to live, lift it up and then set it back down. And set it back down. You'll see them come up off the bottom. I had a big old striper hit it the other day.
Now, on one of your spin reels and all that?
Yeah, 6 pound line with 8 pound nano.
I think you probably know pretty quick whether you got a striper on.
Yeah,
times.
I knew immediately. I knew immediately, but I didn't get to that one. That one broke me off. But then I hooked another one about 5 pounds. I got him in.
Okay.
On that. But those are the three baits. Now I will tell you, shaky. Like if it's a real sunny day, and there's some, I look for dark rocks. I don't like the light rock. Dark rocks hold water better. If you can find dark rocks with those black floats around docks, that's just 2 heat sources. That's good. And marinas.
Okay.
I'll throw a shaky head, but the drop shot and domeki and spoon on, the marinas, those big anchors at the bottom where they're holding the big docks, big spots hang out around there.
Big spots hang out around there.
Yeah, the only problem is you got to get them up through about 90 cables.
I was getting ready to say, we fish a place over on Allatoona called Stamp Creek with one of our electric-only clubs. And there's a marina there, but there's cables like crazy going all over that. So which one of those, you'd still go with a drop shot and just say, hey, I'm going to fish it. I'm going to try to bring you through it. You talked about, following it through there.
Unless you get them on, you ain't got to worry about it. So you got to.
Well, that's true. You got to catch it first.
Yeah, and that braid, that nano braid, dude, I'm telling you, that stuff like Superman. No. It's good. It's good stuff. It's limp. It's subtle, and it's strong. It's strong.
And the name of the knot again? Alberto.
To go with the tacos.
All right.
I think I'm gonna get me a name tag, Alberto, and walk into the taco heaven tomorrow. That's Thursday night.
And if I'm not there, post pictures of it.
Dude, those things weigh they weigh a pound a piece.
The tacos.
Big Earl was with me. I think Big Earl was with me and with my wife, and he ordered tacos.
What taco did you have the last time? Because they were kind of funky looking. What exactly was it?
I had
somebody made a comment about how that taco looked.
Yeah, I had chicken tacos, and they said one of them looked like it was the lettuce frozen.
It was suspect.
No, that was not these newest ones.
Okay.
No, but I ain't lying, man. They brought out Earls, and Earl was just looking at them. Big Earl's Big Earl.
Okay.
And he looked at those things. He's like, "Oh my God, how am I going to eat all these?"
And it's all you can eat.
And it's all you can eat.
We're gonna have this in the tagline on YouTube. You know, Fish North Georgia talks with the Jedi about drop shot and this, and tacos.
And all you can eat
And all you can eat
tacos.
Okay, so but of those three, what's the easiest for a novice fisherman that gets on your boat? What are you going to stick them on first? You going to drop shot, spoon,
Drop shot.
Just say, okay, and this is what it is. This is what it feels like. Here you go.
Well, the drop shot, I can show them how to feather it, and I can talk to them. And I always tell my guys, I say, look, I sound like a turd. I said, but I think out loud. It's the easiest way to teach. And I tell them before we ever do it. I said, so when I tell them to lift, or show it to them, or I see a fish react to their bait, and I see them nosing down on it, and I say, get ready. And I'll see their rod tip move, just a little bit, and I'll say, reel.
Right.
They lift and reel. But probably the drop shot, because you got to remember with a drop shot, you are putting it in their house. I mean, you just got through eating Thanksgiving dinner, and you just sat down in the man chair about to watch the football game.
The Lions lose like
the
they
Lions.
lose every
The Lions lose most of the time.
That's right.
And your wife comes and brings you, and you're full, and your wife comes and brings you a piece of pecan pie that's warm, and it just came out of the oven, and puts it on your belly. You gonna take a bite.
Always.
Don't act like you know.
I always will.
Well, think about that with drop shot. You see the fish, you know they're there, and you're dropping it right on their head. You're putting it right on top of them. All they have to do is understand how to feather it down and slow it down in case they're suspended, and then get to where they know what the field likes. And that's what I normally do. I normally take them to a couple of places. Some of them just might be barren. I said, all I want you to do is feel the drop shot right now. What you see how it feels? Yeah, I got it. I said, lift it up. Drop it back down. You feel it hit the bottom? Yes. I said, all right, anything that feels different, lift and reel.
So anyway, Jim, listen, I'm going to tell you what. We've had, I don't know if this is our fifth, sixth, whichever, I'm losing count, podcast.
Is it okay to drink on?
You can drink on that. Yeah, I think we've broken every podcast rule that Josh has put out so far for me. I think you and I have broke it tonight. So
hopefully Mountain Dew sees this.
Mountain Dew can sponsor you. This is our NASCAR moment on the Fish North Georgia podcast.
So refreshing.
But I tell you what, I've enjoyed the personality that you brought tonight.
Thank you.
It's pretty good. I got told that you were a character, and you have.
Who told you that?
I'm not going. I don't kiss and tell. So
Jimbo.
Nah, I don't know. I can't tell you.
Barnes.
I can't tell you.
Okay, I ain't talking to either one of them.
You're not gonna talk to anyone of them? It was that farmer dude. No, I haven't talked to him. Yeah.
What'd he say?
I'm not. I haven't talked to him yet.
The fish whisperer.
The fish whisperer.
Hello.
Is that how he talks?
Oh, he whispers. He whispers into the camera out on the middle of the lake. There's nobody out there but him. He's whispering at the daggum camera.
Are you saying he's not going to be good podcast material for the future?
No, man, Jim would be great, man.
Yeah,
Jim's good. Jim's good. He's a funny dude. He's a funny guy, but he's got some good experience.
But it sounds
he's an old Navy boy, man.
That's what I hear. But
He's striper fishing off the USS Nimitz.
Oh, really?
Drop shot.
Drop shot.
Out the Nimitz.
Again, like I said, we broke every rule, but I won't tell you what.
No, I give Jim and I are good friends. My wife and I were just over there. He made us a big old. We ate tacos Thursday. Well, last Friday we went over there and he made us a whole bunch of homemade enchiladas. He made beef and then he made seafood. Oh my God,
good, huh?
I was killing it.
So I'm taking you like spicy foods.
Yeah,
you like.
And then he whipped my tail in pool 7-2.
No, I did see that. I did see that on Facebook.
I won one of the games by him scratching it.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know that I would be.
So it's really 8-1.
I don't know that I'd be telling anybody that.
Obviously, you ain't no good.
Obviously,
he said I won that one game because he was drinking White Russians.
Is that what it is? You play pool like we fish, so that's about it.
Man, I'm bad.
But you won one game when we won a tournament. So
that was a mistake.
Yeah. Well.
Oh, you want to hear something funny?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, so a year or so ago, Jim was moving into his new house. He just built his new house on the lake, and he had basically a home party, whatever they call those things.
Housewarming party.
Yeah, that thing.
Yes.
Well, me and Jimbo went over there and the wives, and I kept telling them they want to play pool, and I kept telling them, I said, man, I was a YMCA champion 80 through 84. I said, y'all in deep trouble. Don't put your money up here. I said, I'll bring Wilhelmina.
Right?
I said, what the heck are you talking about? Well, I showed up over there with my pool cue. My wife had bought it for $2 at the Goodwill. I put Wilhelmina together and went to play pool with her, and I just stunk it up. And Jim's like, you played pool? You were the YMCA champion?
80 to 83, man.
80 to 84, man.
80 to 84.
Don't take my
I don't
year.
want to take that 1 year away from you.
I was also pool player of the year in 84, so don't
I didn't even know the YMCA had
Oh
pool.
my God, I don't know. That was the best lie I could come up with. I ran with it. They believed it.
Oh, Josh is over there like, God, y'all need to end this. He's tired. So, but anyway, I don't know how much of that will get edited out by the czar over there. But in all seriousness, no, I tell you what, I've learned a lot from you today before and do the podcast. So no, I appreciate it, and I've had a heck of a time, and you're definitely the character they said you was going to be.
Well, tell them I love them too.
I will, absolutely, man.
I appreciate it, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Fish North Georgia podcast. If y'all have any topics or guests you'd like to see in the future, leave it in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button, click that bell so that you'll be notified of any future videos. And don't forget to give us a follow on Facebook and Instagram at Fish North Georgia. And we look forward to seeing you soon.